Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining our session, Why Tax Breaks at Scale, the Hidden Cost of Fragmented Systems in Enterprise Retail. My name is Aaron Hill. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer with Avalara. I've been with Avalara approximately 10 years, and I'm joined today with my colleague, Christine Martin, who's a Senior Solutions Consultant who's been in the industry quite a long time and with Avalara approximately the same amount of time. So just before we get started, just a couple things. Our safe harbor statement, this information is going to be confidential, solely for use in the context of how we're presenting it today. This document describes Avalara's intentions as of the date of this recording. Avalara reserves the right to change functionality, release dates, technology initiatives, etc. So again, this is in the moment, and again, this is private information. Now, if you have questions during this session, please see the Q&A panel to the right and log your questions, and we'll be happy to follow up with you. So thank you for joining. So to get started, tax isn't a back office problem anymore. Now, why do I say that? Because there are so many things that can impact tax in an enterprise solution when you think multi-channel retail. We have commerce, we have a customer experience component, there's finance, there's regulations, and they all have a central thing in common. It's the tax component. We're going to dig into that a little bit today. Now, what do I mean they all have something in common? Well, let's take a look, right? So when you think omni-channel, you're thinking e-commerce, we're thinking marketplaces, we're thinking traditional retail, brick and mortar, we're thinking mobile devices even. And all those things have to play well together for a good customer experience and to keep things flowing naturally and efficiently through your enterprises. Real-time transactions. Again, all these things work collectively. We're going to talk a little bit about buy online, pick up in store, where I may order something on a website and then go to the store and pick that up. And really, what does that experience look like? And for the retailer, how do we keep those two separate transactions connected together seamlessly and not lose any accuracy or have a bad customer experience there? Regulatory scrutiny. Now, we're talking multi-channel. We're going to talk multi-channel quite a bit today. And when you have multi-channel, accuracy and consistency is paramount. And we're going to speak to those things. So what do I mean? So again, in that BOPIS, that buy online, pick up in store, I buy something and it has X amount of tax on it or a certain sale amount and associated tax. And we want to be able to make sure that that lives consistently, both for the customer experience, but just as importantly, for the consistency that that retailer is going to need to funnel that life cycle of that transaction from the e-commerce through the store and through backend systems with consistency. Let's keep moving. Fragmentation at scale. Growth is a challenge. What do I mean by that? A lot of things that we can do when we're a smaller enterprise don't work so well when we get bigger, right? We may grow and encounter things like multiple ERPs, for example. We may grow to multiple jurisdictions, multiple countries, and those things that we did when we were one or two locations may not work when we start including things like e-commerce, when we start including things like marketplaces, for example. We start having tablet and phone-based experiences as well on those mobile platforms. So fragmentation really becomes a challenge to keep that under control going forward as you scale. And if you don't do a good job, you're going to get fragmented and have a lot of challenges. Now, when we talk about scaling, we talk about things across multiple platforms, your tax logic can become a little wonky. I don't know if I'm allowed to use that word, but we'll say wonky. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when you're smaller, you may hard code things, you may do a lot of manual activities, and those things just aren't scalable, right? At one location, maybe that works, but at 100 locations across multiple countries, that's probably not going to get it done, right? So what we want to be able to do is remove fragmentation through automation, scalability, and consistency across platforms. Let's move forward. Now, the hidden costs, right? Where fragmented tax erodes your experience, your margin, your time, and your confidence. Over collecting, under collecting tax. If I over collect tax, or I don't get it right in one piece of my multi-channel enterprise, your customers are going to know they're going to have a bad experience and they're not going to like that. They may even decide if they can't get satisfaction to not shop with you again or less frequently. So we want to prevent over collection of taxes for the customer experience primarily. Now, admittedly, the jurisdiction's probably not going to mind so much if you're over collecting, right? Because that's just going to go to them. No harm, no foul as far as the jurisdiction is concerned. But under collecting is kind of the opposite problem. Your buyer's not going to say anything. Your customer's probably not going to say anything. But the jurisdictions, when they come in and take a look at your books, that auditor is going to come in and they might uncover that. And then there's penalties and assessments and all those sorts of things that you're going to have to deal with. And so we want to protect against those things as well. And a lot of those things really come out of that scalability and the hard coding and all those kinds of things that people may do that work for a single location. I know the tax rate at 123 Main Street, right? Not a problem. I know the rules at 123 Main Street, but that doesn't scale very well. So those can create those hidden costs, right? Operational drag. Another consideration, right? Spending the time on the cost of compliance. Even if you can do a reasonable job, how much does it cost you to do that, right? Whether it's identifying the rates and rules that you need for those multiple locations, getting that stuff set up in your systems, those sorts of things. How much time are we spending doing that? And then on the back end, how much time are we spending reconciling all that stuff in a manual way? So those sorts of things can create operational drag. And if you're really good at it, right? You really want to start thinking of the concept of cost compliance. What kind of cost does it take you, whether it's financial or in human capital, to get to that acceptable compliance level? Now, strategic constraints. As you move into new markets, the research for what that market's compliance regulations are, the rates, the rules, the jurisdictions, jurisdictional boundaries, all of those sorts of things can be a very big challenge, right? You spend a lot of time on that. Being able to automate those things or relying on systems that can tell you those things for you at the click of a button really just makes that problem go away. Now, M&A acquisitions, right? I'm doing pretty good, and so I go and decide to buy my competitor, right? But they've got different systems. So how do we tie all that together? How do we? Can we? Well, we absolutely can, but it's a very challenging proposition. And having tools that can work in the same fashion with the same degree of accuracy across disparate platforms is really an advantage that you want to be able to take care of. Can we move on now?
Two things come to mind as you walk through that slide, Aaron. One, the cost to being 100% compliant is really expensive. And the other piece, this over collection may feel a little bit innocuous, but there are actually class action lawsuits for companies that over collect tax. So, I mean,
Absolutely,
there's always that
Christine.
risk too.
So, Christine, you'll get a kick out of this. That's how I got into the tax business, over collections. I worked for a retailer who was dealing with $20 million annually in over collections and fees from the state for bad reporting, essentially. So my boss came to me one day and said, Aaron, fix this. And all these years later, here I am. So you are absolutely right about that. That's one that's very close to my heart. Next slide, please. Why do things break at scale? Well, there's only so many hours in a day is really one of the primary things, right? You can only get so many things done. Business works at the speed of light today. There are all these things that just say, hey, this problem is bigger than those old processes can handle, can manage, right? So what do we mean, right? The number of transactions flowing through systems, the reconciliation, the store auditing process where you're balancing each location separately to make sure they balance, do all my transactions, amounts, match my tenders, right? That sort of thing, right? And if not, digging through that stuff and then finding tax discrepancies, right? Can be a very arduous challenge. Jurisdictional complexity. Michigan, one rate. Colorado, 2,892 million rates, right? It's so it feels like, right? So just the complexity of the jurisdictions. And I mentioned Colorado. There are literally situations in a state like Colorado. We talk about them all the time. Where you can go to the next building over, you can cross the street, you can go to different loading docks in the same building, and they're in different taxing jurisdictions. And it can be a pain to keep track of those sorts of things. Now, the problem with jurisdictional complexity is that Zip codes will never do a good enough job to stay on top of those complexities. Michigan, no problem, 6% or whatever it is, 6.25%. But in a Colorado, not quite, right? So what do? Well, you want to do something that really can identify exactly where you are, stand up the jurisdictions, and then identify the jurisdictional boundaries and the associated rates and rules and apply them in milliseconds is really what you want to be able to do. And that really helps fight that issue of jurisdictional complexity. Oh, and also, it as 123 Main Street. Maybe it's really 123 South Main Street Northeast. And because it's 123 Southeast Main Street Northeast, it has a different position on a map. Anybody ever been to Washington, D.C.? Perfect example of how that can affect where you are. I remember once I was in New York City and the contact forgot a jurisdictional prefix or suffix, and I'm in Midtown and I needed to be down closer to Tribeca. So that was no fun. So those things matter, and being able to resolve those things with confidence really lends itself to that jurisdictional complexity problem. Channel proliferation. Say that 100 times really fast, right? Marketplaces, direct to consumer, subscriptions, all these different channels of commerce. How do you bring those transactions in seamlessly, get them reconciled at scale? Now, remember, we're talking, okay, that's easy at one location. That's easy when you don't have an e-commerce site that can be shopped globally. But when you get multiple locations, multiple jurisdictions, multiple countries, all of those things, how do you manage those things? Really having a solution that knows all of those things, what the rates are you shipping cross-border? Does that cross-border transaction require customs and duties? And what does that even look like? All of those things can really get into what you have to consider when you think about all those different channels playing together, right? We talked about BOPUS earlier, and BOPUS is a perfect example here as well, where those channels really have to play well together. And when you have a fragmented environment, where's your single source of truth? Do you have a single source of truth? Are you kind of going, I'm going to be conservative and just pay the highest one? How are you figuring that out? Well, solutions that can provide that single source of truth are essential to what we're doing and what you need to be able to do successfully, consistently today and going forward to promote your business forward for scale. Next slide, please. The organizational disconnect. Well, the organizational disconnect is interesting because everybody wants something different. Tax wants accuracy. IT wants stable systems. Finance wants reporting that they can rely on. And e-commerce wants a good customer experience. But you know what they all have in common? Tax. I remember working projects before I got into tax, and I thought about later, but everybody had success and nobody cared about tax, right? So the tax department was left trying to figure this out because they needed to keep the company afloat. They needed to keep the company out of trouble so that they didn't have customer issues and they didn't have audit issues, right? So that organizational disconnect, how do you satisfy each of those disparate interests or seemingly disparate interests with a simple solution, right? And that central solution really does serve all of those needs, right? From a tax standpoint, accuracy, consistency, IT, it's up, it's reliable, it's 99.999% up. You don't have to do any maintenance on it. All that maintenance is done for you. Now, speaking of that, even for the tax department, all those rates and rules are managed on behalf of the tax department. They don't have to do those things. Finance, solid reporting, AI-based reporting, where you can say, hey, I just need to see all my exempt sales for these states for the last 6 months, and a report's going to pop out and show you that information that you need in addition to other reports as well. And then that customer experience, right? When that customer's on your e-commerce site or they're at your checkout lane, giving them an experience that's fast and efficient. I remember sitting in line at a Walmart or something, and there's somebody with a big book out, and they're going through there. And what I learned later was that was an organization trying to get an exempt transaction process, and it took forever, right? Because they didn't have a system that identified that customer as an exempt buyer, and then provide that exemption quickly and seamlessly. So being able to do those sorts of things, gold. Next slide. Christine, I think this is yours.
This is mine. So, what does good look like? And, Aaron has touched on this single source of truth, but what does that even mean? I happen to be in Texas today, and Texas this weekend has a tax holiday. Imagine this omni channel environment where you've got mobile orders, you've got web orders, you're taking direct orders, somebody would have to update all of those rates and the taxability here in Texas and what's taxable and what's not. There's so much research that goes on. But to me, what good looks like is having this single source of truth where regardless of where you're making transactions, it's calling one system and it's applying the rates, the rules, the boundaries, the exemptions, all of those things happen in one place. So you have consistency across your entire channel. Let's keep going. And Avalara supporting that single source of truth across your channel. We've got more than 43,000 customers that are using Avalara services. And here's just a few of those integrations. Let's keep going. Avalara was born in the cloud. We were created to alleviate this tax burden. Our founders had this big, hairy, audacious goal to be a part of every transaction in the world, and we are constantly working with that. We have AI agents that are scouring the world looking for rate, rule, and boundary updates. And those agents bring that back to a human to keep the human in the loop to make those decisions and to be able to apply those decisions to our tax engines. We're filing millions of tax returns every single month. We're processing billions of transactions every single year on behalf of our customers. Let's keep going. And how do we do all of this? Well, look at all of our slides that all of these things that Avalara has. We know that Avalara has, or that retailers have a need for, go to the next slide for me. Retailers have locations. Those locations need business licenses. Those locations also have real estate taxes and property taxes that they've got to file. They're both buying things and selling things. On the buying side, there's probably consumer use tax with things that are given away, things that are used within the business itself, needing help with classifying the items for taxability purposes cross-border. Avalara has products to help with all of those things for our retail customers. And let's go to the next slide. So where do you see fragmentation today? Map it, measure it, modernize this, scan this QR code. If you'd like to learn more about Avalara and our solutions, please visit our virtual exhibit booth under the exhibitors tab at the top of the page. Keep in mind that you've got this ability to connect all of your systems to have a single source of truth, that you're not taking time from your IT folks updating rate tables, your tax department pulling in data from multiple sources to be able to file tax returns, or spending time to file tax returns. I spent time in industry. We had 10 people that did nothing but file tax returns. We want to eliminate that burden for you. So please join us, visit our virtual booth, scan this QR code, and learn more about Avalara. Thank you all so very much for your time today. We certainly appreciate it.